Frieren is a surprisingly good anime. Why do I say surprising? First of all, it hit the top of my anime list out of nowhere, seemingly nowhere. I've used my anime list for a long time, just checking it out, and I don't usually agree with what's on that list. So just because something gets to number one or two doesn't mean I'll like it for sure. Like I think Spy Family got to number one temporarily, and so did Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War. But Frieren got to that number one spot, and it's actually still there right now, even though the first season is completely done. That's one thing that got there and stayed there, unlike Bleach and Spy Family. But it's surprising, I say, because I started watching Frieren because I was like, well, it's the number one and I'm looking for anime. Won't the number one be the best choice? Let's watch. I watched it and it was boring. It was so boring. I couldn't stand how boring it was. It was hurting to watch. It was painful because it was so boring. And there was something there that stuff was happening. You could tell that the writers were really trying to make the story flow, and the story was flowing. There was some information going on. It looked like good stuff. It was just boring. Nothing I can do about it. But fortunately, I'm a baker. I bake. I have a baking business. So when I bake, I have an anime put on. I just kept watching it because I had something to do. I was baking. If it was boring, I didn't have to pay too much attention. So I kept watching it. And I made it through like 5, 6 episodes. And man, and episode 6, I think, is where I really started to like the show. When they found Stark, that's when things really changed for me. That's when the show got enjoyable, really enjoyable. And it only went up from there, all up until the very end of the show. But it's like the first few episodes were like setting up the scene. And I couldn't tell while it was happening, but like watching those first few boring episodes really added to the payoff of when I actually personally started enjoying it. I'm aware that there's probably a bunch of people who enjoyed it from episode one, but I'm just saying if that's not you, that doesn't mean this isn't your show. You might just have to invest 5 times 20 minutes of your time. That's like 100 minutes, almost 2 hours, watching the first 5 episodes to see if it's for you. Which in my case it was. The characters were built pretty nicely. I like the world building, it's really good world building. By the time I'll say the first serious fight came around, and you know it if you're watching. The time that first serious fight came around, I was like, whoa, this stuff's great. I didn't know this was this kind of anime. Like, I didn't know it was actually shonen like that. Like, if you asked me in the first few episodes if it was shonen, I think I would have told you, no, not really. It's kind of slice of life fantasy type thing. It's not really like the actiony shonen, and you can have slice of life shonen, I guess, but that's not what I mean. And even when the first thing with the first demon came up and teaching you what Voltrax is or Voltrox or whatever, I was like, oh, no, it's a little bit of fighting, but it's like just really baby fighting covered up with words with good animation. But it's not like a beat 'em up fighting style shonen anime. But then when you watch that first fight, you're like, oh, okay, I'm a fan. I'm an actual fan. It was really good. And then they just keep going. But everything else was really good. And I was pleasantly surprised. And especially the last arc, I really like a lot of the characters they built there. And I don't want to say too much, but like the first rate mages, well, I mean, just one of them that they showed was really interesting. Ubel was really interesting. All these characters were just so interesting. And they brought in so many different stories. It's just hard to believe that these guys just came and went in a few episodes for like the second half. The show's really good for that. The writing is really good. The characters are really good. The interactions are really good. The anime is awesome. I'd give it a 9 out of 10, in my opinion. I like to give things high ratings. I'm not, it doesn't cost me anything to rate things high. I always get so mad when people just want to rate things as low as possible. So I don't like critic reviews a lot of the time. But, anyways, I digress. I have not watched too many anime that came out this year, to be completely honest with you. I've been catching up with like the major things like Kaiju number 8, Solo Leveling, the great stuff. I haven't watched a lot of more under the, just more lesser known anime, but I have watched just a few of them. So to say this is the best, I'm not in a position to say that because I don't watch that many. But among the things I have watched, this is hands down my favorite from recent times. And besides that, it just feels like the highest quality. And I mean new anime. Best new anime. I'm not talking about My Hero Academia Season 7, though I would put Frieren above MHA Season 7. Sorry. And I'm also not talking about Demon Slayer Season 4. I really like Demon Slayer Season 4, but I still might put Frieren above that because Frieren felt like a full experience, whereas Demon Slayer Season 4 felt like you were going somewhere, you came from somewhere, you were kind of going somewhere, and you haven't yet arrived. But Free Run was like the whole thing, and it gave you everything in the package. So really good stuff. Free Run's awesome. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. You've definitely heard of it before, or at least I hope you have. But now's your sign to go watch it. That's it.